for cycling, it's just really important that to develop good power, you need to be really stable on the bike. And people talk about core strength, but really there's a lot of programs out there that are kind of core strength programs, but they're not really specifically related to cycling, are they?
No, they tend to be quite generic in their nature, and that they will focus primarily just on the core. And you'll see a lot of those exercises that are out there with those generic programs that are primarily, they're just prone exercises, you know, and they're static exercises. We always integrate everything with what we do, because we know that the body as a whole works better when it's trained that way. And if you look at the principles and I suppose the skills of cycling, yes, you need to have some sort of stability or tension through the core area, with the power being produced through the hips and the legs. But when we say tension and stability, we don't mean there's no movement at all. There's just the right amount of movement, okay, which is a very small movement in itself, but it's important that that movement still occurs. So a lot of our core exercises aren't done in a traditional static method. It's integrated where there's a feedback from, I suppose, the hips to the core, and from the core to the shoulders, and vice versa in some methods as well. Yeah,
and it's really taking that whole functional strength into the world of the mobilisers and the strength training, isn't it? Because the problem we have is that static strength training and stabilisation type exercises are great at developing strength in that one plane or whatever, position. But the problem is that we're on a bike, and when we're an athlete doing a sport, there's multi-dimensional forces being acted on our body. So we need to be able to develop strength and stability in all of those planes of movement, don't we?
Yes, definitely. And we can't, what most people sort of tend to overlook is the fact that you can't have stability if you don't have mobility at a joint, okay? And as soon as you start to lose mobility at a joint, then you're going to compromise the biomechanics of what happens at the bones and what happens at the joints. And so therefore the reactions in the muscle is going to be different. Then you have compensations, and then you have potentially something going wrong later on down the track.
So I'm going to bring up one exercise, the plank.
Yes.
So,
your favourite.
Yeah, your favourite. So, love to hate relationship with the plank, don't we? So the plank, and I like to bring this up when I'm talking to people as an example. So the plank is a classic stabilisation or core strength type exercise that a lot of personal trainers are rolling out. But it's a very static, it's completely static. So tell me, Matt, what are the issues with the plank?
Look, there are several issues. When the plank first came out, and it was probably the late 90s that the research on it came out, the belief was that the longer you could hold the plank, the better core strength you would have. Sort of makes a bit of sense.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Okay. What they later looked into the research and decided, well, hang on a second, muscles are designed to be fed movement. Okay. What happens if they don't have that movement occurring? Well, the simple fact is you don't have proprioception occurring at the muscle. Okay? If a muscle doesn't have proprioception, it's not going to work. And you see people that do a plank, after a period of holding that plank still, they start to shake. And there's a reason for that. That shaking is muscle starting to move. Okay? It's not only fatigue, but it's starting to move the muscle. So you end up with a decrease in the neural activity by holding static positions for too long. You end up with decrease in blood flow. You end up with tensions in the body where you're not really designed to have tension. And so over a period of time, that can end up with a more inefficient core, if you want to put it that way. So
because it's not being fired up properly neurologically, right? Because the body's designed to move, not to stay in a static position.
That's right. So the standards on the plank these days is that it should not be held for any longer than 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Most people will hold it for 2 to 2.5 minutes because they think more is better.
Well, and it comes back to that whole, it must be really hard, and it must be, it must be really having to challenge me for the exercise to be any good. And look, this is one of the big banes for me. It's like, even with the training that we're doing, it's like it's important that you're able to manage the exercise, and not necessarily, and in a lot of cases, tough is not necessarily the best way of doing things, is it? No, it is important for people to be able to understand what their threshold is. As soon as you start to lose
the ability to move in and out of a exercise or a movement effectively,
Yep.
then you're decreasing your performance.
Yeah.
Okay. If you add too much load, you can decrease the rate at which you can move in and out of an exercise. You can also decrease the range at which you can move in and out of exercise.
Of course.
So it's important to work with loads that you can move successfully through whatever range, through whatever direction, and come back to where you started, without any sort of loss of form.
Yeah, so it really comes back to that plank is great for being good at doing a plank, right? So that's great, but does it translate well into being a good cyclist and stabilising hips and those sort of things? No. Not at all. So this is where the exercise that you're doing must match the sort of movement pattern that you want to, and we spent quite a bit of time on that with this program, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
So the mobilisers and the functional strength training exercises that we've got in this program are all around creating that movement pattern.
Yep.
And creating strength in the right areas so we can actually get the proper recruitment and the proper stabilisation happening. Yeah.
We try to replicate as best we can for a home program the skills that are needed for cycling.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of that is sort of vertical displacement through the hips, up and down motion, tension relations through the core, and sort of integration from hips through core through shoulders. So a lot of the exercises will cover those in various means.
Yeah.